All right, so the time has come to start the rebuild on the TransTrem. So I guess the only thing to do is just jump right in and get started. So the first things that I'm going to do today and try to get accomplished is I'm going to get the saddles out. Obviously got to get the strings out, and the bar will come off, and I'm going to see if I can get these jaws out without having to take the trim off the guitar. If I have to take the trim off to get these out, I may wait to do that until the next step. But I figured that I've procrastinated on this long enough, and it's time just to jump in and just get started. So let's go. First thing I'm going to do is get this arm off. This just screws down this little knurled knob here, kind of tightens it down. And typically what I found easiest is to just kind of spin it around. I don't like to use any tools on that because it'll, kind of burr it up. So I just bring it back around and use this little tower post here as leverage against that. So I just kind of hold against that and then just pull the bar. And let's see if I can do this without knocking my camera off. There we go, she's coming loose. So now that that's loose, I can just pull this up a little bit there, and then she should just spin right off. So step one is going very smoothly. All right, so this will just come completely out. Try not to drop it on my guitar body. Couple more turns here. And there she goes. So that's how that fits in there. Just that threaded rod there. And then that will adjust your set point of how far you want your bar to kind of, sit here or here or here. I obviously like it a little bit out of the way so that when I'm picking down on this lower string, that it's kind of out of the way a little bit. So, all right, easy enough, that's done. So we'll kind of swing this maybe out of the way there. All right, so next thing, I guess, will be to get the strings off of it. And for that, let's see, I may go ahead and set this kind of back in a lock position here if I can. There we go. Let's lock that back into place. So that'll keep, as I take the tension off, that'll keep this from moving. So one thing that I had on setting this guitar up, because it's got a Floyd locking nut on the end, instead of, a Steinberger nut where the double balls go in, this one actually locks down on the nut side here with a Floyd Rose locking nut. So I had to really determine what the length of where these jaws would end up. I actually found a picture online of one of Eddie Van Halen's PV Wolfgangs that had the TransTrem on it, and it had the same setup where it had the locking nut. So there was actually a close-up picture of the bridge, and he had little white dots kind of just tapped down so that it would show the middle position of each of these jaws. So I copied that in those positions. I didn't put the dots on there, but I copied where his were, and it lined up pretty well exact. Like so, I guess if it was good enough for the professional Eddie Van Halen, that hopefully it would work for me, and it did. So for now, when I loosen these strings are going to stay locked under the nut, and when I put it back together and retune it, these should come back to the same spot that they were. So I'm not too terribly worried about that right now. So let's just get these strings out of the way here, and we do that with these little tuning wheels we'll just continue to loosen that until these pop out. So this will probably take a couple of minutes here. So let's see. There we go. That one is loose. And out it comes. Just kind of set these over to the side. Like I say, hopefully these will all be easy enough to get these jaws out once these strings are off and the saddles are off. Alright, so there's that one. And one of the things too for the calibration and the accuracy of the transposing, there's a couple of different string manufacturers that make strings for the Steinberger TransTrem. Labella is the string that I prefer on my actual Steinberger, and Disassembling makes a set as well for the Steinberger. I find that I just prefer the Labellas on my actual Steinberger guitar, but for this guitar, the Labella standard, let's see, what is it that I use? Here's a pack here. I use the Disassembling NYXL 10 to 46 single ball, and I like those because they have the proper size ball on the end. Some of the other strings that I tried to use, the ball was a bit smaller, and I think that because Disassembling makes the other Steinberger strings, they already have the proper size ball, and it looks like they just use those universally. So these have actually worked pretty well on this one. So just a tip for anybody that happens to have a custom guitar with a TransTrem and a locking nut, I found that the Disassembling work very, very well. Your mileage may vary, but I've been happy with them so far. All right, let's get these last three out. And as you can see, as I'm moving these, basically all that does is increase the length of the jaw from the nut back and forth. So loosening just moves those forward and allows the strings to pop out. All right. So I've got a little bit of camera shake. My camera is mounted to a microphone stand that is mounted to the desk here, and every bit of movement that I do translates into the camera, so sorry about that. My guitar workbench over here is also a laptop station, and I don't have as nice of a camera setup over here as I do on my normal streaming computer, so it is what it is until it's something different. So this one's being a little difficult. There she goes. And what's nice too is they color code these on the ball ends with the Disassembling, so it makes it easy to know what's supposed to go where. All right, let's get this last one out. Every time I mess with this tremolo, I think of just how ingenious it is for the design. You know, Ned Steinberger, this was back in the 80s that he came up with this thing. This thing is just really, really well above and beyond its time from then, and still today. You know, nobody else has come up with anything that's close to doing what this does. You've got your little, you know, your pitch pedals and your whammies, and I've seen some that kind of mount here and it's got a little sensor that goes above your or below your strings or whatever, and you got a little handle that pitches it up and back, and those are cool, but nothing compares to the sound that you get out of an actual Steinberger TransTrem tremolo. Not that I've seen anyway. So I would really hope that somebody, would eventually come up with either a reproduction of this, or, maybe, I think Gibson owns the Steinberger rights now. It would be awesome to see them come out with a new guitar that had, a new recreated design of this that worked in the same way. Because there's nothing that gives you that same sound that this thing does when you're playing and pitching up and bending, and all of the strings stay in tune with themselves. All right, so strings are off. Everything is ready to go as far as getting the saddles out. With the saddles, I know I have adjusted those before, so that I know there is a little set screw right in here, right there. Sorry if this is not focusing, but right there is a set screw that puts tension against this first saddle here, and then that obviously translates through all of them, and then this one is just held in by friction over here. As far as I know, there's not one over there. So next step is to loosen this set screw here, and we'll see if these come out. I'm not sure that these really make a difference as to, which one goes where. I think it's just a matter of your adjustment up and down for the radius of the string. So I'm going to keep these in order as I take them out. So let's loosen this here. There we go. It's not terribly tight in there. It doesn't have to be. You've got the tension of the strings holding them downwards, and then it's just a small little set screw that just keeps them from shifting back and forth. And obviously this is how you would set the intonation as well. You would loosen this screw, and you would move your saddles, backwards or frontwards. How do we set intonation? If it's flat with an F, we move forward. If it's sharp with an S, we slide it backwards. I've always remembered it that way, and it's always been helpful when I go to adjust my intonations. I don't have to look it up every time. All right, so that's loosened up, and these are sliding around pretty readily. Let's get these out. So again, I'm going to take them out one at a time and stack them over here, out of the way in order, so that when I put them back together, everything goes back where it came from. That one. So I have never actually taken these out. We'll take a look at this last one here, a little more detail. Get that one out of the way. All right, so here's our last one. We'll take a quick look at that. So we can see where that little screw sets in there. And it looks like, well, the action on this thing, I don't know where this came out of. Obviously it's been in this guitar since I've purchased it, and who knows what the history of this was, but it looks like it's been moved around a couple times. Good scrape there. Looks like it's actually had some really low action on it at one time. Let's compare another one here. Or is that just that's just a little bearing where that comes through. So we've had just some intonation adjustments on this one. Somebody got a pretty good scrape on it there. So anyway, it's all cosmetic at this point. Looks like that's all hidden. All right, so that looks pretty good there. So it looks like for the trim, it's held down. Looks like we have a screw. Let's get something that we can see here. There we go. So it looks like a screw there, a screw there, possibly a screw there, and possibly another one there that hold this to the body. There's another screw that's right here, and another screw that's right here. I would assume that that probably holds some kind of plate or something onto the bottom of that. But it looks like mounting to the guitar, it's just this screw, this screw, this screw, and that screw. But we're going to find out probably in the next go around. I'm going to see if I can get these little jaws out of here. Oh, yep, there it comes. Okay, so this seems like it has a little retention ring or something that holds that in. So evidently that has a screw that comes through, and then it screws into the back of this jaw. Okay, so I'm learning new stuff along with you guys on this. Now what this is here, getting some grease on my fingers. All right, so what this is here, this little screw here, this is the fine-tuning jaw for when you're calibrating. And we can see what that does is when you screw it down, it pushes this jaw upwards. So that changes the tension on the string to calibrate when you're in a transposed position. So you can really dial in the accuracy of this thing. Also, each one of these jaws are a little bit different. I'll show you this one here. And you can see that the string, let me get the ball end over here where we can see. The ball end, when it goes in, stays pretty well right on top there on this particular jaw. So I'll pull out another one and show you the difference. But these have to stay in order. These are super, super important to stay in order, or your TransTrem will not work like it's supposed to. All right, so the break angle of this string, the high E string, like I said, is pretty well right up to the top there, as you can see where the ball end comes. All right, so let me get next one. I'm going to get organized over here just a little bit so that I make sure these stay in order. All right, so that's that one. All right, here's the B string jaw, and you can see it looks the same from here, looks the same there, obviously the same thing there. But what you have here, let me get that same ball end and show you. See how far down in that one goes? That one went way down in there. And there's a little lip that that ball end kind of clips into. So that changes the break angle of each string so that when you pull the TransTrem down or back up, that break angle, this is where all of the calculations have come in to let that string tension decrease or increase. And this is just absolutely genius. The calculations and probably math figures and everything that were written out for this, it boggles my mind how somebody figured out how to do this. This is just incredible to me. So you can see just how much further down that goes in. All right, so let's get the rest out. All right. I feel like I'm kind of venturing into unknown territories here. All right, so again, same kind of thing. Oh, look at there, that's actually a separate little piece. Okay, so this whole piece moves up and down in that channel. I didn't realize that this didn't move. Like I said, I'm learning this stuff right along with you guys, so hopefully we get some more understanding of this thing. Let's see where this one sits. Clip this in here. Yeah, that one sits way down low too. Okay. All right, carrying on. And I guess sometimes this would probably be pretty intimidating to just dive in and start taking one of these apart. But I figured, you know what? I've got another guitar with one of these on there, so if I screw this up as far as order, I got one I can just go look at real quick. So, all right, there's that one. I'm obviously going to take the opportunity to get all this kind of cleaned up and any lubrication that I need to put on, maybe just a little bit on the screw threads and so forth, just to keep this smooth. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, this thing looks like it's pretty clean. Got a little dust that's coming out, but we'll get that sorted. All right, last one here. There we go. Yeah, I think some of these are the same. I think there's 3 different types of these jaws. Don't hold me to that, but I think there's 3 different ones with the different break angles on it. Let's see where this one goes. Yeah, that's about midway there, where some of the others were dropping all the way down, and the high E, I think the high E is the only one that sets as high as it does. But yeah, I think there's actually 3 different type of jaws there. All right, so that's the last of that one. Okay, so there we go. There's most of everything ready for this to come off the body. And I think that this will be the end of episode 1 of TransTrem Rebuild. And next time around, we'll make a video of this coming off the guitar body and just kind of looking underneath and seeing what's under the hood here, and see how far we can go at that point. I really think that all that's involved further is, I think there's a screw right here, and then I think this little bar right here comes loose, and then that opens up where one of the bearings are, and I think at that point I can slide this out, and that opens up where this other bearing is. And I really honestly don't know about the spring, this big spring. I really don't know how that comes out of there, so I guess we'll all figure that out together. So join me on the next episode, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.